Michael, it's so good to have you on ISF. So looking back on 2024, what were some of the most significant moments for the financial markets and why were they important?
All right, well, thanks so much for having me on. It's great for us to be able to kind of talk to your audience, as the New York Stock Exchange has such a big presence in Florida with nearly 100 kind of Florida listed companies that are employing well over 1 million people. So as I look back at kind of 2024, the thing that really stands out to me the most is just the strength that we've seen in financial markets. It's the second consecutive year where we're seeing double-digit gains in most major U.S. indices. The S&P 500, that benchmark index, that your audience is investing in their 401ks, that index is up over 20% in back-to-back years for the first time, going back to the mid-90s, right? And there's some parallels to draw between kind of the current environment and that time period as well, with that common thread being kind of the technological revolution that's taking place. When I look at what's happened in the last year, there are kind of four things that stand out as the primary drivers of that strength. Right, first of those is that AI revolution. We've continued to see kind of capital spending and business investment in technology infrastructure, the build out of data centers, right? And what that's done is help to kind of create jobs and create a resilient economic backdrop here in the U.S., right? And that resiliency is happening despite the fact that we're coming off of a 2-year time period where the Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates at the most aggressive pace that we've seen kind of going back to the mid, kind of the 1980s, right? And since September, we've seen that Federal Reserve begin to pivot. They've been cutting rates. They've cut by 75 basis points with an additional kind of 25 basis points expected kind of later today. And they're doing that into that resilient economic backdrop, helping to preserve that that environment kind of as we move forward. And that's going to help Main Street as you start to see interest rates moving lower on mortgages, auto loans, kind of credit card loans, right? So that'll be kind of positive going forward. And then lastly, the last big event that we'd had this year came in November with the election, right? And as that overhang has been removed, we've really started to see some optimism building that we could potentially see some lower taxes and a pro-growth, pro-business-friendly environment moving forward, setting us up well for 2025.
Yeah, very interesting. And so how are markets responding to the upcoming Fed decision?
Yeah, so there's this wide expectation that the Federal Reserve will cut rates today by 25 basis points, but there is kind of a belief that kind of the messaging around that rate cut is going to suggest that the pace of cuts going forward is going to slow. We have started to see some of the inflationary data over the last couple of weeks suggest that disinflationary process has stalled out for the time being. There are some kind of seasonal headwinds as we move into Q1, right? And there's also a lot of uncertainty coming out of Washington and just how some of the policies that are being implemented there are going to impact inflation and employment, kind of the two key mandates for the Federal Reserve. So I think they are going to signal that they're going to move cautiously going forward, looking for 2 to 3 additional rate cuts in the coming year. But I do think that the kind of the market narrative about how hawkish Chair Powell may have gotten a little bit ahead of itself, so we could see a sigh of relief on the back end.
Yeah, for sure. It's so much good information. Where do we find more info if we want to dig a little deeper on this?
Yes, so I publish my daily market commentary every day on the NYSE.com, and I also have a podcast that's released every Friday on the Inside the Ice House podcast feed, where we talk about the major catalysts that are impacting financial markets in the week that was and the week ahead.
Awesome. Michael, so great to have you on our show. Happy New Year to you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks again, and have a happy and healthy New Year.